On this episode of Fin Too Deep, me and Neal Driscoll will discuss a variety of topics, including, is Bill Belichick the right answer for the Miami Dolphins and Stephen Ross in terms of righting the ship? We will discuss that in depth. Also, Anthony Weaver said today that the run defense makes him want to throw up. So what is he going to do about it? We'll talk about that. And plus, Tua Tagovailoa pops up on the injury report. We got a lot to cover, a lot to discuss. Do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new, and as always, let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! He's upfield down the near side, man open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. It's not over the touchdown again! Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw, blitz coming, and get to him. No, he takes off running, and he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one. Appreciate each and every one of you coming through for this episode. We got a lot to discuss on today's show. Welcome in, Neal. The unthinkable happened last week, Neal. The Miami Dolphins, they lost to the Carolina Panthers when most had them beating the Carolina Panthers. And they lost in an ugly fashion, blowing a 17-point lead. All that goodwill they started to build up against the Jets in their brand spanking new rival uniforms went out the window almost instantly. So, where are you at after the loss to the Panthers?
I'd have to say that's probably one of the more embarrassing losses that we've suffered in a long time. Against what I still think a bottom five Carolina Panthers team in the league, having Rico Dowdle looking like Gale Sayers out there wasn't on my bingo card for the day, and just how they lost, jumping out to that 17-0 lead. And what really frustrates me, look, the defense is a train wreck. It's the worst defense in football right now. Whether it's coaching or players or both, it does seem like young, talented players are playing in this defense and not playing well in their rookie seasons or as well as they have in the past. So something, it seems very off with it. But, you're up 17-0, you lose that game. And then, in the second half, how the defense started and how, it ended, obviously a night and day difference. But I really hated Mike McDaniel's game plan. I thought Tua, in rewatching the game, I thought Tua Tagovailoa was actually the best player on the field for the Dolphins, with Jalen Waddle being a close second. I liked Waller a lot, but he really only played a half of football when you look at the targets, right? So I can't put him up at that level. I think that Mike McDaniel took the ball out of Tua's hands way too early. Our average time of possession per drive of our 6 drives in the second half was 2 minutes and 8 seconds, which is about 35% below the league average possession per drive. I think we had 93 yards of total offense in the entire second half, right? So, you see Tua hit that big throw to Waddle, and I asked myself, What prevented them from doing that more? Because that was where we could win. Waddle was cooking whoever was up against them.
Yeah, he was.
And then McDaniel's got uber conservative, and I feel like they just wanted to get out there with a win, and they played scared, and that ultimately cost them because, that last drive, it's kind of a glass half empty, glass full, right? Like, you'd like to see him hit that throw to Waddle, but, perfection cannot be the bar, right? Like, I think he missed the throw. But,
he did.
didn't we all know that the game was going to end with a sack? Didn't we all? And then punting in that scenario,
Neal, that was his one bad throw that game. Really, he just missed it. And it's because, let's talk about this for a second. Okay, so the Miami Dolphins, I don't know if you've heard me talk about this, but so the Miami Dolphins against the Panthers had 10 drives, right? Do you know the offensive line ended 5 of them? 3 sacks, right? 2 of them on Jonah, all right? Then you had the bad snap from Brewer that didn't let Tua set his feet. And actually, Tua made the throw, Neal, because I know you rewatched the game. If Waddle tracks that ball inside shoulder, it's over his bucket, and he actually it's right there. He actually makes the catch. But he was tracking it inside shoulder, not outside shoulder. And so he didn't make the catch. So that's on Brewer, right?
It reminded me of that Dallas Tyreek pass. You remember in that game where we had
where he lost the ball, where he lost it. Yeah. Oh, no, I thought you were talking about the one. What was the one where Tyreek lost sight of the ball? You remember that a couple years ago?
That's the one. Yeah, I thought it was Dallas. I might be wrong.
No, it wasn't. That wasn't the Dallas throw. That was it the Saints or something like that? I don't know. I thought it was indoors, that throw. I think it was indoors, that throw. Anyways, yeah, so 3 sacks, the bad snap from Brewer, and also, remember the hold on Cole Strange? Do you remember? They converted, it was 2nd and 13, and they converted that 19-yard dot to Waddle, and it got called back because of the hold on Cole Strange. So it took him to 2nd and 23. Then they did the 15-yard gain to Tanner Connor, 3rd and 8. And then you had the 5-yard run from scramble from Tua because nothing was open. And then I'll do you one better. Do you remember that one drive that ended in the second half with the incompletion of Malik Washington? There was actually a hold on that play against Aaron Brewer that was called back.
Right.
So think about this. If they would have converted that throw to Malik, it wouldn't have counted. So you would have had 6 drives ended by the offensive line. You had 5, but it actually should have been 6 out of your 10. You cannot have, and this is what's even more troublesome than, forget the Panthers. How do you expect to beat good teams when you got a defense that can't stop a nosebleed, and then you got trench play on the offensive side that, let's be honest, it's when you're not worried about Larry Borum because the interior is just so bad right now, even Aaron Brewer started off really good, and he's starting to fall off because the guys around him, Jonah's not playing well at all. Cole Strange hasn't been good. Keon Smith got benched. It just hasn't been good in the interior. Dude, forget the Panthers. How do you expect to beat the teams like the Bills or playoff quality teams when you got your offensive line ending 50 to 60% of your drives in a game? That's, and it's not even like the Panthers were just like a pressure magnet defensively. I mean, we make Derek Brown, look like
John Randall out there, right?
Yeah, unbelievable, bro. And now he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, again, when you got a defense that can't stop a nosebleed against the run, and Rasul Douglas was having his worst day. I mean, he wasn't taking enough depth, and they were constantly picking on that. And they had a couple big plays against him, one to Tet and one to Xavier Legette late in the game on that final drive where they scored to take the lead back. You just can't. You can't have your offensive line. Listen. When your offensive line isn't getting enough push in the run game and you can only run for 19 yards, you can't also have them killing 5 or 6 of your 10 drives in pass pro. You just can't.
100%.
To win like that.
100%. And kept the consistency of running A-chain in between the tackles instead of getting him on the outside was driving me insane. But, like, it's funny. We came into the season saying, the offensive line I think we're most worried about is Patrick Paul. He's probably been a top 5 left tackle in football.
Yeah.
That's what's even makes this even crazier is that, like, your young second-year left tackle looks amazing. Everything around him looks like shit. And, I didn't think this offensive line was going to be, like the Hogs that the Redskins had in the 70s. But, like, I thought they were going to be serviceable. But, like, I also didn't know James Daniels and Austin Jackson were going to go down so soon. But, like, I mean, it was just it was a comedy of errors that ended the wrong way. And can this team ever play 3 phases of the game at the same level? Ever? Like, can they ever play good offense, good defense, and good special teams in one game? Like, I don't know if very rarely do you see it. And it's like the defense in spurts at a time will play well in a game, and the offense doesn't play well. Then the offense gets on fire, and then the defense sucks. Like, it is such an anomaly. You can't really put your finger on the pulse, but it's broken.
And that's been going on. This is like a pre-McDaniel era thing. This was happening under Flores. This was happening under Gase. And this is what I kind of, this was my only pushback on the soft narrative. Now, yeah, we look soft right now in terms of injuries and how we are playing in the trenches. But I always push back that that's not why we're not winning. The soft narrative wasn't why we weren't winning. It was what you just said, Neal. That is what I would push back. I'd be like, the bigger issue than us being soft right now, and this was me saying in the offseason, the bigger issue for me than being soft was we can never get all 3 phases to show up in big games against good opponents. So you look at week 9 against the Bills last year. Tua shows up, right? Puts up one of the best EPA per drop back ever for a quarterback against Sean McDermott. But the defense puts up one of the worst EPA per plays ever against the Sean McDermott defense. And our special teams puts up one of the worst EPA per plays ever. You constantly look at this. You look at the Titans game, right? Duke Johnson, a couple years ago, Duke Johnson gets off the bus and is screaming, feed me, feed me, feed me. But the coaching staff doesn't make the adjustments. And the defense didn't get off the bus very well and defend well against the adjustments Vrabel and the offense in Tennessee made. You 100%. Constantly see this. Like, how many times have we seen, and we've seen it against good teams. We've seen Tua show up against good teams, but the problem is what you said earlier. The other phases don't show up, so he has to play basically perfect football. You can't afford even one miss like we saw against Waddle, and that was against the Carolina Panthers. That wasn't even against a good team, and Tua was in that position again where, brother, if you ain't perfect, we don't have a chance. And how many quarterbacks in the NFL are perfect? I mean, Jalen Hurts can win Super Bowls without having to throw 20 touchdowns in a year. Jalen Hurts can win games against good teams without having to even throw for 150 yards. We've seen Josh Allen beat us without even having to throw for 200 yards. Those aren't perfect performances or perfect games.
Well, because I think their coaches have the ability to adapt to the game, and I don't think McDaniel does. And that's where, like, we're a draft podcast. We love the draft. Yeah. I don't really even care as much about the draft class as I do about the GM and coach search this time, because that is where this starts. Like, you cannot tell me if you go position by position and line us up against the New England Patriots, we don't have more talent on our roster, but they just go and beat Buffalo. Why? Because Mike Vrabel's there. And I really think that whatever they do, and I know we're going to talk about potential coaches and stuff later, they have to get somebody who's been to the show before. Enough of this first time, let them figure it out on the job. And look, I saw Mike McDaniel leave that game down the tunnel, the video that everyone saw, and that is a dude that is broken. Like, that's his dream to get that position. And, we talk about it in spaces and on podcasts pretty recklessly, but that's his life. But you have a duty to perform a job, and he is not doing it. This team, I tell you, that I didn't have the highest expectations for the Dolphins, but I did have them coming 5-2 out of the gates. Like, the fact that they're 1-4, and I do not see how they're going to compete this week with the Chargers. I think that this team could be staring down the barrel of a 3 or 4 win season overall at this point. And some will tell you that's a good thing. Some will tell you it's a bad thing. Like, I don't know. Like, if it causes massive change throughout this organization, I think it's a good thing. If it's bring back McDaniel or promote Greer and bring Champ Kelly, who's got ties to Matt Nagy, and that's our coach. Like, how the Dolphins handle this is it concerns me more than it excites me at this point, which I don't think should be happening. But I mean, this team came out and is laying a massive egg. And I think what they tried to do is when they missed their window, it was time to reboot then. Instead, I think they tried to build this on a broken foundation. And right now, that's why we're seeing what we're seeing. As Jack Jones is an example, a guy that was available, he's played pretty good for us at times, but it was horrific on Sunday when it mattered, right? Like, you can't build a roster of I'm going out and grocery shopping for players on 1-year deals because I have no depth at certain positions. And Douglas, Jack Jones, just their plan at cornerback stunk. It's funny. Darren Waller brings life and juice to the tight end room, which is great to see. But it's always something else when you think you found you solved the riddle. Here comes something else. It's that old, our guy Roddy Piper, right? Just when you think I had the answers, I changed the questions, right? Like, that seems to what happens with the Dolphins is every time you think they've solved something else rears its ugly head.
Yeah, and what continues to rear its ugly head, and let's talk about this for a second, is that corner room, Neal. Right now, the Miami Dolphins are in a position where they basically, now with Cornell Armstrong being hurt, they have no healthy slot corners. This is a team that started off putting all their eggs in the Kohu basket, a guy who's stayed relatively healthy his whole career. He went down, all right? They've had nothing but injuries. Remember, they moved off of Mike Hilton because they were so high on Jason Marshall Jr. Mike Hilton is playing starting snaps somewhere, and we don't have any starting healthy cornerbacks. Now, they did, Neal, sign Kendall Sheffield. I know, I always get that mixed up.
Me too.
Kendall Sheffield to the practice squad. And I said on yesterday's show, Neal, I think that's going to be their weekly elevation now, like what they were doing with Riley Patterson, until guys get healthy like Cornell Armstrong or whoever. I think now their weekly elevation is going to be Sheffield at slot corner. They've talked about playing safeties like Minka and such in the slot. I know a lot of us came into the season with the expectations that the front seven is going to be really good and the back end is going to be the issue. And it's been the reverse, where the front seven's been the real big problem, but the back end, has held up for the most part. I know I said Rasul Douglas was getting picked on last game. Jack Jones was taking one too many penalties last game, which was costing us. Where are you at with this corner room? Because eventually this thing's going to get so depleted that it's going to become what we all expected it to be, because there's going to be no one left.
Yeah, as a big Led Zeppelin guy, when the levee breaks, I think the levee's about to break in the secondary, and I think this week's going to be a tough matchup for them. And I hate it because, McConkey, Keenan Allen out there, Quentin Johnson if he plays, that's going to be a tough matchup for our secondary. I think that they have held on admirably, but I think the true colors are actually going to show. And you mentioned the front seven, and coming into this season, I thought the two certainties were going to be Zach Sealer and Chop Robinson, and neither of them look good at this point. That's where it's. And I'm I'm on record as an Anthony Weaver guy, but no one is safe at this point. No one at this point is safe, because I don't care what you get up at the podium and you say, I want that secondary, that effort on the defense was like playing Madden on rookie, and you're just padding your stats. Like Ricky Dowdle, he might have got the NFL rushing record against us. This defense might give that up this year, depending on who they play at the right time. It is uninspired, and you're going to run into a big scenario here coming up, I think, Reason, where if this game goes the way I think this Sunday, like, when is the time where you start selling off assets and realizing your spot? Because right now, they're 2 games out of a wild card. As much as we all might not think that they're in it, they're not going to have a fire sale just yet. But you lose this game and you're 1-5. You got to look in the mirror at some point. Like, Minka Fitzpatrick, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb. Like, there are names that that are contenders are going to be after. And if you get 3rd, 4th round picks, like, man, it might be time to do that. And, I don't know, man. It's frustrating to think that we have, 12 more weeks of the NFL, 13 more weeks of the NFL season. And here we are at week, 5, 6, talking about draft and punting on a season. But, man, I think I've seen this movie before, and it just sucks. Like, I was very dejected on Sunday, despite not having a lot of hope for this team, because it would have been just nice to check that box and get another win. You were close to New England. You could kind of tell the story of, like, maybe this team just coming out of the gates a little slow. But I just see a bad football team headed in the wrong direction, and I don't think the coaches are going to be the lifeboat that saves them. And, I know they like Mike, and we see all these stories coming out of it. I don't think there's any chance that he can recover at this point.
What do you think about what Kenneth Grant said today, that now coaches are starting to sit in on player-led meetings?
I mean, that's interesting, because I don't know. Is there a mutiny? Is there a disconnect from the coaches and the players? I don't know, man. It does seem like everyone's trying to find Waldo in there. What is wrong here? What is causing us not to achieve our goals? But I think a lack of a strong football personnel guy is killing them, because we all throw the fucking flags at Greer, and Greer has been bad. And I like Chris Greer, some of the things he's done, but I do think he has to go. Like, he's on the same predicament as Mike. But like Ron Brockington, their scout, Matt Winston, these guys have been in the building for 15 to 20 years themselves, right? So all these guys, they're national director of scouting, they're VPs of player personnel. That whole building to me is tainted, man. I have to imagine, and unless I am completely brain dead on this year's draft class that I was so excited about with Kenny Grant and Jonas Avenea, for them to be the 2 worst rookies pretty much at their positions in football with the talent they have, screams to me that there is some type of coaching or some type of strength and conditioning or developmental issue in Miami, because it just doesn't make sense to me, man. Like, I've watched every snap Kenny Grant played, and I know it's going to take time for him to get in. I'm not writing him off as a bust like some are already, but I know he's a way better player than we've seen. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know if you feel the same way. I feel like something is off with these young players not reaching their potential, man.
Yeah, I think this is coming down. Like, okay, I got a few feelings on this, and let me know. I think Butch Barry isn't getting talked about enough because of
100%.
Patrick Paul's development right now. But I think there have been red flags since last year, and I talked about this last year. You remember the rants I would go on. I would say, never mind just McDaniel. Who are the people in the building telling McDaniel, yeah, bro, don't worry, we'll make it work with Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg? I said those people needed to be fired, and I pretty much guaranteed that Butch Barry was one of those guys, and Frank Smith could probably be included in there too. You look at now this year, Jonas Savaianaya. What is bugging me about Jonas Savaianaya is a few things. Number one, again, a team caught in the cycle of outthinking themselves, whether it be the head coach or the offensive line coach or whatever. I mean, James Daniels, I've said this since we signed him, he has legitimate reps at left guard in the NFL and good tape at left guard in the NFL. Why aren't you sticking him at left guard? And then, listen, I never wanted to draft Jonas Savaianaya to be left guard in Miami. I wanted to draft him to be right guard. And it's the same reason why I wanted Membo. Start him off at right
the Robert
guard.
Hunt replacement is what we're pounding the table for.
Well, yeah, and then when we all know Austin Jackson goes down, you got guys that are comfortable on the right side that you can kick out potentially. That was my whole thing, was like Austin Jackson will eventually go down, And either Membo can kick out or Savannah can kick out. And if they fit there, bye-bye, Austin Jackson. We figured it out now. And instead, they outthought themselves and like, well, let's put them. I mean, they talked about it today, right? I don't know if you saw that, but Frank Smith basically said the decision to play Jonah on the left side instead of his college position was part of a long-term vision to pair him on the same side with Patrick Paul long-term. Not a decision made for now, but long-term with the franchise. Brother, you guys are thinking long-term when you're in a win-now, short-term frame of mind as an organization. What are we doing here? Your number one, and I talk about this all the time. I don't care what anyone tries to tell me about, well, it's, just because, this player went to the left side and from the right and he's fine. That's every player is different, number one. Number two, what is your job as a head coach with a rookie? Your main priority is to put them in the most comfortable position possible so that they can be the most possibly successful. You look at Jonah's issues, and a lot of it is in the base. A lot of it is him getting caught oversetting. A lot of him is footwork. A lot of it is him missing with that initial punch. He's doing everything starting with the other side of his body now. Well, reason, he played 300 snaps at left tackle last year. Okay, and the majority of his time at Arizona was on the right side. That is where he is most comfortable. Why are we overcomplicating this? He's not the athlete that a Penei Sewell was, and why I said moving Penei Sewell from left tackle to right tackle at the NFL was a great move because, I found film from him in high school doing it at a high level, but B, you could tell the type of athlete he was and the type of head he had on his shoulders. You knew the transition would be fine. And I just, Savannah is not the athlete he was, that Sewell was. Again, overthinking it. Then you move to the defensive side of the football. A lot of the stuff you're seeing with Kenneth Grant, it's all coachable as well as the stuff as you're seeing that needs to be fixed with Jonah. A lot of it is literally he's getting too upright for his size and he's losing leverage battles because of
playing way too high.
Because of his pad level. Again, this is coachable stuff. This is not, listen, was I seeing him get washed out? 110%. Was I seeing him getting blown off last game? A couple yards off the line of scrimmage? 110%. But I've also seen reps where he's destroying the tight end coming across the backside. I've also seen reps where he's pushing Josh Myers, the center for the Jets, right into the lap of the quarterback. So I've seen reps where you see that manpower, that power he was known for flashing. I've seen that. My whole point is a lot of the issues here with these young rookies are coaching. And we're letting coaches get away with it right now. Butch Barry, he's getting a pass on everyone because of Patrick Paul. But we're forgetting the red flags we saw last year with Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg and those decisions being okayed. And now we're seeing coaching issues that are causing Jonas Savaianai to struggle, technique issues that are coachable, and he's getting a pass for it. Everyone's just automatically, blaming the player. I said this, Chop Robinson. Why did we, one of the reasons why I think we saw such a good rookie year from Chop Robinson, and really a lot of the development in year one that Patrick Paul was being a sponge for, both of those cases, both of those players had a guy like Teron Armstead. Both of those guys had Teron Armstead doing some player coaching as well to them. And they clearly, both of those players at different points in the year, I heard more praise for what Teron Armstead was telling them than I heard from their positional coaches. I'm just going to throw that out there, okay? People can go and try and find the interviews and prove me wrong, but my memory serves me correct. I heard Teron Armstead getting, I heard Chop Robinson talking about Teron Armstead more than I did Austin Clark. I heard him talking more about Teron Armstead than he did the linebackers coach. And Patrick Paul, we know the relationship he had with Teron Armstead. Listen, I think that was a detrimental loss. I really honestly do. At the end of the day, these players still got to be professional and still got to show up and do their thing. So I'm not going to say, put it all on, the coaching, and some of it obviously falls on the players. But I just think the situation have changed. They're different. And I think our coaching is getting highlighted right now. And, you talked about Anthony Weaver, with how bad our offensive line has been, how bad our, defense has been against the run. I am shocked that there have been no firings to send a shot across the bow. Like, you could, I wouldn't suggest it, but you could fire Butch Barry and promote Lemuel Jean-Pierre. You could fire Anthony Weaver and promote Austin, promote one of those defensive minds you got there, right? Or you could turn around and you could fire a positional coach like Austin Clark, right? Like, there's stuff you can do here and nothing's being done at all. Like, Ross isn't even sending a message to McDaniel of, send a message to your staff. Like, they're not even doing that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, let it keep rolling. And what's crazy is you have a guy in Joe Barry who has defensive coordinator experience. So if you fired Weaver, you could make Joe Barry the defensive coordinator. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying there's options and there's paths, and Ross isn't making a move, and you're not even getting Ross to mandate McDaniel to make any moves. So, and I think coaching is getting too big of a pass right now.
For sure. I don't think they know what to do, and I think it's kind of like a good old boys network in there, and they're all buddies, and no one wants to fire their friend. Like, it's a disaster, man. I love when the camera pans to Dan Marino's face, and you just see a guy who's like, "What the fuck am I doing here? Like, why am I here? What a waste of my time." Like, you see it in his face, man. And, and it's just everything we do. We're so reactionary instead of proactive, right? And what I hate, like, going back on the Kenny Grant thing is our rookies, and I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but our rookies have to come in here and be saviors immediately instead of being contributors. The best organizations, they blend their rookies in with their veterans, and in year 2 is when they really start to figure it out, and then by year 3 they're real solid pros. We saw the Eagles take that approach with Jalen Carter, right? Who's one of the best young defensive tackles in football.
Yeah.
We have such a bad roster construction that we need Kenny Grant, we need Jordan Phillips, we need Jonas Savannah to go
Dante
be
Trader.
day one. Everybody to go in there and be day one football players
and contributors.
And that, right? Like, we get excited about Jason Marshall. Jason Marshall, if he develops into your 5th cornerback as a 5th round pick, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to be your starting nickel corner. I really don't believe anytime soon. Like, it's just the expectations of rookies, I think, is unfair. Now, I was the biggest Kenny Grant pusher in the thing. So right now I got egg on my face. I look like an idiot. I thought he was going to come in here and be Dexter Lawrence. That player, Dexter Lawrence, didn't have a great rookie year, and I still have hope for Kenny Grant.
Yeah,
but
man. There's I see flashes, man.
I think, and he did get his first half sack this weekend. Did they give him that half sack reason?
Yeah, they did.
Okay, good. So, like, for me, it's one of those things, like, I think the coaching staff needs to change, and I think they need to get a coach that has the guts, the marbles, to look Stephen Ross in the eyes and say, man, everything you're doing is broken. Everything you're doing is broken. I want to win games, but I want them to fix that broken front office first.
Neil, look at Mason Graham. Mason Graham had the same amount of run stops heading into last weekend, and he only had 3 more pressures than Kenneth Grant, and one of them was a sack. All right,
And he doesn't play next to Myles Garrett, right? We don't have Myles Garrett, do we?
Well, that's the thing. Look at how good it's that thing you're talking about. Look at how easy it is for them to blend in Mason Graham into that defense because of how good everyone around him is playing. I keep telling people, what do you expect Kenneth Grant to do when Zach Sealer looks like he's playing the worst football of his life? What do you expect him to do when Bradley Chubb, who's usually a decent run defender, has been one of our worst run defenders this season? What do you really expect him to do when veterans who have been in this league are struggling mightily around him? You think the rookie is going to rise around the above? And see, this is what brings me back to coaching, Neil. We've got all of this talent. We've got guys who are proven. And this is what keeps bugging me, Neil. I keep going back to this, Neil. Someone needs to answer me. This is what makes me tell me it's a coaching issue and not a talent issue right now, Neil. How were we better off last year with only really Zach Sealer and Chop Robinson being the impact players for the most part, dominating that front seven? Calais would make a play here and there, but last year was if Zach Sealer or Chop Robinson didn't show up, our front seven was trash. We brought back Chubb. We brought back Phillips. We brought in Matthew Judon. We made that linebacking room with KJ Britt and, Willie Gay deeper than it was last year. Like they've done now. I think one of the key pieces they lost and that no one's talking about is Deshaun Hand, especially against the run. I think he was a bigger contributor than what he was given credit for here. But my whole point is we've added so much more talent than what we had in that front seven last year through people returning through injury, through signing, whatever, and yet we're somehow way worse. And then you got to ask yourself, is it because last year Weaver was riding the residuals of that Fangio defense, and now that he's fully implemented his version of McDonald's defense, now we've gone to the crapper? And if that's the case, then we got a real big issue here. There's legitimate questions here. This defense should not be as bad as it is for how much talent is in the front seven. It's just basically inexcusable in my opinion. And let's be real here, Neil. One rookie in terms of Kenneth Grant should not be the domino that collapses your whole front seven. I mean, it's not like it's a front seven full of rookies.
You know what I see? I see a defense that's always playing on its heels. Soft zone. Let you catch it. We don't want you to get the big play on us. Instead of a team that's playing on their toes, that's coming up and smacking you in the mouth, a team that's being assertive out there. Our defense, the completions we allow in the underneath passing game in key third down situations, it's maddening to me. And that's where
Baby.
It's all this soft zone with inadequate players, and of course the other team's going to make plays eventually, right? I hate everything I've seen from the defense. I actually, as much as I've been critical of Mike McDaniel, think he's been a way better coach than Anthony Weaver this year. But neither of them are getting a pass from me right now, and that's where, what Stephen Ross does next is probably one of the biggest decisions he's made in his tenure. Because if he makes another bad decision, he might not be alive to see anything change. And where they are right now, this is rivaling 2007 for me, man. I have that feeling about this team, and they shouldn't be this bad.
Yeah. So what do you think about the Tony Pauline article that came out talking about how Rex Ryan could be, an option in line because they want kind of a disciplinarian defensive head coach. And one of the key things talked about that is so they can bring in a good offensive coordinator to keep working with Tua Tagovailoa, which shouldn't surprise anyone because he's going to be here in 2026 because of his contract. And then that article also basically said there's a lot of tension boiling over since the Panthers lost. And it sounds like, if things don't get right, it could be 2 to 3 games max for McDaniel. What are your thoughts on that Pauline article?
You remember when you're young and you'd go to a restaurant, they throw a little 4-pack of crayons and you do the little connect the dot games on the back of a menu? Let's connect the dots on this one, right? So for those who don't know, I worked for Tony Pauline for 2 years at Pro Football Network. I know that he has severe connections in the Northeast, and I know that he has a relationship where he can get information from people like a guy named Mike Tannenbaum, who was the first football guy that Stephen Ross trusted.
Yeah.
Mike Tannenbaum, right?
Tannenbaum.
So I have to think there's a lot of validity in Tony Pauline's reporting, which leads me to think, Rex Ryan. What do I think about that, right? What would I think about a guy like Rex Ryan? If you're a soft football team under Rex Ryan, I don't know if you can ever be tough, right? Because that's what that guy is. He hasn't coached in a while. I don't think it's a slam dunk move, but it's a move that I would not just poo-poo to the wayside. He got Mark Sanchez to 2 AFC championships, but that was a long time ago. For our next hire, what I need, reason more than winning, is somebody that can look at the skeletons in the closet and fix that broken front office. That's why if you can get a guy, my number one rule is that they've had to be a head coach in the NFL, which really limits you when you're looking for a coach. That list would be a guy like Rex Ryan, John Gruden,
Let me ask
Mike
you this.
McCarthy.
Hold on, before you give that list, what do you say to the fact of history that, and Rex Ryan actually falls under, he's green lighted under what I'm about to tell you. Like, he's good to go under what I'm telling you. But when you get into like the Grudens and the McCarthys, no head coach has ever won a Super Bowl with two different franchises. Now, someone tried to tell me, well, Shula did it with the Colts, and then he did it with the Dolphins. No, he didn't do it with the Colts. The Colts in 68 won the NFL championship.
58 championship, yep.
And then they lost.
68.
68.
Yeah,
and then they lost the Super Bowl to Joe Namath that year. Remember where he guaranteed the victory? So he actually didn't win two Super Bowls. What would you say, like, Gruden, like Rex Ryan, hasn't put a winning team together for over 20 years, and it was really Dungy's team. And then what we saw in the Raiders was kind of a disaster. Mike McCarthy falls under that. But Rex Ryan actually falls under, you're trying to find an Andy Reid, a guy who was figuring it out the first time around, didn't figure it out, but that second time around, they're going to figure it out. That's what you're trying to look for. What do you say to that when you name some of those names name that have already won with another franchise and history is not on their side winning with another one?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely something to pay attention to, but I do think everything's made to be broken, right? So, like, there's definitely validity to it, right? And I'm not saying it's the sexiest list, but I think that what we've seen, right, since, Jimmy Johnson departed, it was Dave Wannstedt. And for whatever we think about him as a head coach, he was a first-time head coach. Like, that's the facts. Obviously we hired a lot of guys in between: Flores, McDaniel, Gaze, Cameron, Philbin, Nick Saban. Saban was the only one that we hired, Sperano, that was not a first-time head coach at a collegiate or NFL level. Everybody else, it was their first time head coaching at a college or pro level. And I think that takes experience to understand. Like, pros for Rex Ryan is, I think he could actually build a really good front office. Hell, my guy George Kikinis worked with him a long time in Baltimore. So, that could be interesting. At a podium in Miami, like, I think that Rex has angled for jobs for the Dolphins before. I'm not saying it's a no-go. It would surprise me if he's the route they go. But it has to be a coach that is not a first-time guy. Like, I don't love Gruden. I like McCarthy a lot, actually. There's a guy that you mentioned at the beginning of your show, Bill Belichick. There's
we'll talk
Steve
about
Spagnuolo
Belichick in a little bit.
There's a bunch
is a
of
guy
guys
that I really like too. Yeah.
Cliff Kingsbury would be an option.
Well, the chat is saying, what if Stefanski gets canned?
Dude, I'd hire him the second. He'd be my first choice.
Yeah, same.
I think he's a great coach.
That's the guy I think would figure it out with us after getting close with Baltimore, with Cleveland, right?
Stefanski would be. I'd actually. This is a hot take for me. I'd take Stefanski even over a John Harbaugh.
Ooh,
I really, really like Kevin Stefanski. I think about this. The Browns are a dumpster fire of an organization. They rival us, right? They had Baker Mayfield win a playoff game, and they were so ungrateful that they kicked him to the curb for Deshaun Watson. I don't think Dylan Gabriel played awful. I know he's not the long-term solution there.
Yeah.
I think the Browns are playing really good football. And when I watched that game, because, one of the beauties of those 9:30 a.m. games is you can watch teams you don't get to watch too often. I was impressed by how well coached the Cleveland Browns seemed to be. And Stefanski's a two-time coach of the year, if I'm not mistaken. I think he'd be the perfect type of coach for us. I'd love for the Browns to fire him and let us have a crack at him.
What about Kingsbury? What do you think of Cliff Kingsbury?
I know he has an awesome ass outside living room that we all get to see when he had that draft outside. But look, I think he's a great offensive mind. He does have NFL coaching experience where he maybe failed in Arizona. I don't write someone off because they failed at one location, especially when they're a young first-time head coach. Like, maybe that was the chink on the armor that they had to take to understand what it's like to succeed, right? So Kingsbury would be in my top 5 candidate list because I also think he's young and very innovative.
Yeah.
And look, you're asking me about football. The game I'm excited to watch most this weekend is Oregon, Indiana. Why? Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza,
Moore,
right?
Baby.
So,
That's gonna be good.
so like, I want to see, I'm not going to be naive enough to say it can't be an offensive mind because McDaniel and Gaze didn't work out. I'm not going to pigeonhole myself into that. What I say is that, like, guys like Stefanski, Mike McCarthy, Cliff Kingsbury, why I like them is because I think the Dolphins are going to have a top 5 pick and be drafting a quarterback. And I still think Tua is going to be back next year as the starter. Yeah. And that's exactly what I want. I want it to be Alex Smith, Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
I want Tua to have every opportunity to go and be the starter. And I want the quarterback to hold the whoever we draft, because we're going to have a shot at Moore, Sellers, or for Mendoza. There's no doubt in my mind. Yeah. And you get one of those guys. You know what I want him to hold all year? That damn clipbook and digest NFL football.
Listen, I think more. Well, okay, so my top 5 right now, I've taken Nuss out of my top 5. So my top 5 right now are
me too, and Aller. I took both out.
Yeah, Aller. Yeah, they're both off for me. Now apparently, Nussmeier has an oblique injury,
and Klubnik.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of Klubnik. So my top 5 right now would be Moore, Mendoza, Mateer, Sellers, and Sawyer Robinson. I like Ty Simpson, but I need a bigger sample size. I think guys like Sam Levitt is intriguing. Taylor Green, to me, is like a lower budget Lenore Sellers. Mensah had a really good game against JKS last week for Duke. I mean, there are some intriguing guys, coming out. But I'm going to tell you this right now. If you're keeping Tua for another year, that might be the perfect situation for a guy like Lenore Sellers. But I do like Mateer can go back for another year, and I think this injury might force him to go back. I think Moore and Sellers might go back for another year too. Like, I think this might be it's Mendoza, and then, you're looking at guys like Sawyer Robinson and stuff like that after that. I think you're going to have more guys go back than we expect here. But, listen, if we're picking top 5 and Tua's back next year, that's a perfect for Lenore Sellers. That is like perfect for him to be groomed under a guy who excels in areas where Sellers needs to grow in terms of ball placement, timing, accuracy, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the other smart move, and I've said this over and over again, is Francis Moigoa or Spencer Fano. So, I don't know. I'd take Rex over Bill. In my opinion, Rex did more with less. Reason, what do you think about Belichick as a GM? And Rex made the Jets relevant. Let that sink in. So let's talk about Bill Belichick for a sec here. So Bill Belichick, the word on the street right now with Bill Belichick is that Belichick has discussed buyout options with North Carolina's hierarchy. Belichick has signaled a willingness to trigger his own $1 million buyout if he can find a soft landing with another team or in the media. Don't you have a feeling like Stephen Ross is watching this whole situation, and if he wants to bring an authoritarian in here, don't you have a feeling that he's really going to circle that Belichick wagon if he becomes available?
Yeah, and maybe I'm desperate, but I'd be A-okay with it, and here's why.
Really?
I think I would, and here's why. I don't care about how quick we win. I care, again, my primary goal is to building a front office that creates sustainability here with real football personnel people. And I think that Bill Belichick is the only person maybe available that Stephen Ross would give full autonomy and power to. I don't know if the game's passed him by, but I've seen them hire coaches that never had the game in their hands, like Mike McDaniel, right? Like, I cheer for a team that hasn't won a playoff game in 24 going on 25 years. There's no way in my right mind I can put my nose up at one of the top 5 coaches in the NFL history. And maybe he doesn't care about the game like he used to. He's not going to have Tom Brady here. But I know this. If there's a guy that's available that can build this and fix it, it could be him. Now, what I don't like about him is he's an older guy, right? Like,
this is a terrible drafter. He's awful.
This is a short-term solution on anything. But, like, what could he do from a personnel standpoint? Who could he go out and build in that player personnel? Like, the Rolodex of people in the NFL that have left, like Nick Cesario, like, I like a lot of those guys. And it's one of those things, like, I doubt Miami's going to get him. I think he's going to go to the Giants. But sure, like, I would not turn my nose up at Bill Belichick. That's where, we're the Miami Dolphins, man. We are at a doormat level. If it wasn't for the New York Jets, it's hard to name us as not right now over the last 5 to 10 years one of the worst 3 to 5 franchises in this league. I don't think that Bill Belichick would personally want to come here. But why I think you're right is, like, it's Stephen Ross, and he's he's a rich dude who gets whatever he wants. Go open up the checkbook, right? Like, I have no doubt in my mind that he would pay for it. And I know that a lot of people are probably like, Neal, you're crazy. Bill Belichick, man, that guy ruined 20 years of my life as a Dolphins fan.
Don't you look at his numbers without Brady? 83 wins, 101 losses, only 2 playoff berths, 0 division titles, 0 Super Bowls, 1 playoff win, 0 top 10 defenses without Brady. Doesn't that worry you? Like, his record without Brady against 500 against teams over 500 is terrible.
I hear exactly what you're saying, and I think Brady meant more to the Patriots than Bill Belichick, 100%. But I also think this guy won Super Bowls with receiving corps that had Deion Branch and Troy Brown, and he built tough, hard-nosed football games. He's familiar with the AFC East. I really doubt maybe it is Miami for him. I'd be excited for him to be here. I don't know.
Aren't you watching? What's happening in North Carolina? Isn't that turning you off even further?
I mean, I don't think he ever really wanted to be there.
Yeah, but the circus that him and his girl are creating too is like, I wouldn't want that in Miami. Do you really want her in Miami?
I mean, look, yeah. I mean, that is not what you want to see. But like, I don't know, man. I think that he'd be the one person. Like, I don't think anyone else can get the full power here. I don't think that, like, Stephen Ross would give it up to anyone but Bill Belichick. And again, like, he's the guy that I know for sure if we hired him. Greer, those scouts that I named earlier, probably Brandon Scherr, definitely the whole coaching staff. All those guys would be out. Now, who would he be able to build around with?
Wouldn't that make you sick to bring a cheater here and he has a chance to beat Don Shula's record for wins in Miami? Wouldn't that just make you sick, especially if he wasn't doing good?
I mean, if he's winning here, man, it's football. We swallow our fun. I mean, there's a statue of Ray Lewis outside of Baltimore. When he won that Super Bowl, he was accused of second-degree murder, right? I had to cheer for Tyreek Hill for the last 3 years. We do effed up things to be a football fan. Now, in the same breath, Tom Brady's a cheater, and I'd take Tom Brady back when we could have got him too.
Well, because Tom Brady left Bill and won with Tampa Bay. Like, he proved he could still win without him. Like my whole thing is, like, I'd rather hire, Harbaugh and Cockness from Baltimore. I'd rather hire Stefanski and Ray Agnew as the GM than Bill. I'd rather all these guys over Bill Belichick, because the problem
me too. Yeah, me
you
too.
can't even get
Both
Bill
those guys
Belichick.
over Bill Belichick.
You can't even say to Bill, hey, okay, well, we want you to do one role. He's going to want everything. And that's the problem. Like, I'd be more open to Bill Belichick as the GM and a Harbaugh or a Stefanski as the coach. But then the problem is, that is going to eventually boil over, and there's going to be tension, and
too much personality
together.
Yeah.
You like, that's my problem. Like, I don't think he's at a position where he can handle all of that anymore. And then when you look at, okay, well, do you want to give him a shot at the GM spot? Again, I go back to it. Terrible drafter.
No, I don't want that at all.
Absolutely terrible.
I don't want that at all.
And you guys, everyone complaining about freaking Chris Greer drafting. What do you think y'all are going to be saying when this guy's making, like, to me, Bill Belichick, when you look at the circus, when you look at, I just think, I think the game has started to pass him. And I think it's, you want a hot take? I'd let bygones be bygones and hire Nick Saban as head coach before I brought back Bill Belichick.
Rumor is he wants to get back into coaching, isn't it? Isn't that the rumor out there?
Well, I would hire Nick Saban as head coach before I went out and brought Bill Belichick to Miami. And again, I would take Stefanski and Harbaugh over Saban. I think Cliff Kingsbury is an interesting one. You know what I mean? I think, Ray Agnew or Cockness are the moves probably at GM right now, or your boy Andrew Weidel, now that my guy Mike Borgonzi is in Tennessee. So I don't know. Let's get into this game this week, though.
I'll say this: I don't think Harbaugh would be interested in Miami. I'll just put that out there.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So let's get into the Chargers real quick. We only got a few minutes here. Frank Smith does expect Tua to play Sunday. He popped up on the injury report with hip and thumb issues. You got Anthony Weaver said he wanted to throw up watching the film due to missed tackles. On the flip side, dude, Joe Alt, Trey Pipkins, Deshaun Hand, and Darius Davis were not practicing today for the Chargers. Your thoughts on the run defense against the Chargers with no Omari and Hampton? It's going to be like Hassan Haskins and a group, but hey, we saw what Dowdle did last week. And your thoughts on Tua? Probably not by the injury report, but he should be good to go.
Yeah, look, man, I think the Chargers are a team that we historically have matched up well. Their offensive line is dinged up, but after watching that run defense last week, I mean, I'd have to imagine the line of people in fantasy football trying to get their hands on Hassan Haskins this week was unimaginable. You know what I mean? Because I think, honestly, if we don't watch that Carolina game, this is a game where I think the Dolphins could actually probably play it really close or win. What really scares me is that the coach on the other sideline, who should probably be our head coach, is far superior to our head coach.
Yeah, exactly.
And he is going to know how to attack us.
Yeah.
And they just got Odafe Oweh from Baltimore, who, wasn't playing well there, but, he's over there against, what's his name now, Larry Borum in that defense.
Tart can't work in Miami, but over under Harbaugh, he's one of the highest graded guys in football.
Yeah, I honestly think – and I predicted this as a loss before the season, and I'm not changing my stance. I think it's a tough matchup. And look, we're Dolphins fans, so what's going to happen? Justin Herbert's going to throw 300 yards and light us up. We all know that's what's coming because we're Dolphins fans, and that's what happens.
Yeah.
The guy, and I they've cooled off the Chargers. Let's not, they have. And so has
Herbert.
Yes, and Herbert is cooled off, and they lost Omari and Hampton as well, right?
Yeah.
So it sucks. I had fantasy shares of him.
Same.
But man, it sucks, man, because I thought we'd be a team that could compete with the Chargers, and I think Tua and Waddle are going to play well. I think Waller is going to probably catch some more balls. I actually think A-Chain probably gets back on the right green side of the stat sheet this week. But man, I have no faith in this defense. None, zero.
What's your score?
Man, I think they're going to put up 27-20 Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, Neil. I mean, we're wrapping it up here. Kamani Vidal is going to have a career game. I mean, we saw some issues in our secondary last week. Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, and the way Quentin Johnson's playing this year, that provides a real problem. Yeah, probably no Mekhi Becton or Joe Alt, but do I got faith that this front seven is going to get pressure? Let's be real here. So, I'm with you. I don't have much faith that the Miami Dolphins are going to get it done.
Is it the game where coming off the heels of getting run over by Rico Dowdle that our passing defense is the one that gets exposed this week? We're all expecting Haskins to run all over us, but watch Herbert come out, throw 350 and 3 on us.
He has his best game of the year, and
100%. Because you know this on key third downs. I don't know who's going to be playing nickel corner for us.
Yeah.
But they're not going to be able to cover, even if he's older. Keenan Allen in the Keenan's going to get open, and it sucks though, man. Because I think long term, like I don't get up and say, "Hey, I want this team to lose for a draft pick." I wanted to beat Carolina, even though I know this team's not going anywhere. I wanted to win that game, It does suck now that like you look at I start watching to say, hey, like I need the Jets to win. I'm cheering for the Jets to win, right? I want Cleveland to win. I want these teams. I want Tennessee to pull some wins out. Like I want these teams surrounding us to win. And I do want that high draft pick now. And it kind of sucks to be in that predicament, but like I think we at this point know where we are. But yeah, man, it sucks.
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to clarify something too. Tua popped up on the injury report with a hip injury. We do not know if it's the hip he had surgically repaired, the one that had the hip pointer last year. We have no idea. So anyone saying it is just speculating right now. But guys, I'm going to be back tomorrow. We're going to preview this game. We're going to dive deep into it. And then Sunday, we'll be live for it. Hey, the Miami Dolphins opened 2023 with a great win over the Chargers at over 1,500 people live in the post-game chat. Let's hope they can repeat that performance. Guys, smash that like button. Over 350 of you in the room. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. We'll see you on the next one. Fins up all day, every day.